Hello, my name is Michelle Herzog. I'm the History Social Science Consultant here at the Los Angeles County Office of Education and the Director of the California Democracy School Civic Learning Initiative. I want to welcome you to Module 5 of this professional development series that's designed to provide educators with the knowledge, skills, and resources to implement high-quality civic learning in classrooms to prepare all students for college, career, and civic life in the 21st century. The entire series can be found at the website you see right here. Modules 1 and 2 focused on the urgent need for civic learning and provided an overview of the California Democracy School Initiative. We also described the 5 components of high-quality civic learning: inquiry, investigation, civil dialogue, communicate conclusions, and taking informed action. Module 3 focused on strategies to frame a civic inquiry. Module 4 was designed to help teachers facilitate those investigations. Now, once students have conducted their research and analyzed the information they've gathered, it's important to provide a platform for them to dialogue about the various perspectives they found. The purpose of this dialogue is not to debate ideas, but reveal different perspectives and evidence that may support different conclusions. Modules 5, 6, and 7 present 3 different approaches to engaging students in high-quality civil dialogue about the many controversial issues that students are interested in, studying, and addressing. In this module, we'll provide you with information, tips, and resources to help students engage in civil dialogue using the Socratic seminar technique. Module 6 demonstrates how to utilize the philosophical chairs approach. And Module 7 showcases structured academic controversy as an approach, and it has a very special introductory interview with Dr. Diana Hess. Let's turn our attention now to 2 tools we have created for your use: the California Democracy School Civic Inquiry and Investigation Rubric and the Classroom Observation Tool. They both have the same content information, but are in slightly different formats, so hopefully they'll be useful to you to clarify what we mean by exemplary civic learning. Take a moment now to download these tools so you can refer to them during this webcast module. Now, before we focus on the use of Socratic seminar, let's remember that Socratic seminar, like other techniques for civil dialogue, follows a deep investigation of the issue by students. They've examined multiple sources of information and multiple points of view. That's important. At this stage now, they're ready to share their findings through dialogue. And we want the dialogue to be informative, we need it to be respectful, and of course, civil. Now, by looking at our rubric, we find that civil dialogue values all points of view. It's civil and respectful at all times. It reflects a great deal of preparation in advance from the teacher, facilitator, and students. It should demonstrate a great deal of academic language in use. It relies heavily on evidence from research and multiple sources. Good civil dialogue is led by a facilitator, but primarily driven and delivered by the students, participants themselves. Exemplary civil dialogue allows adequate time to explore a particular area before they move on to another point. It's intentionally designed, obviously, to make everyone feel comfortable and safe in sharing the points of views they've seen and have investigated. And it should prompt questions that are authentic and refer back to previous points made in the discussion. This is a very academic exercise. Good civil dialogue is monitored, yet owned by the entire group, not just a few individuals. So let's see what this looks like in the classroom. So we were lucky to visit the 9th grade English classroom of Jenna Gasparino at Santa Monica High School in the Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District. You can find the process, the support materials on the website that accompanies this webcast, so you can follow along or refer to them later to replicate in your classroom. Now, in this scenario, the students have pre-read text on the topic of higher education and immigrants. Their inquiry question is this: should our democracy extend government support for higher education to immigrants who, as young people, entered the country illegally. Pretty controversial topic, to be sure, but something that young people are very interested in learning more and talking about. So you will see, Ms. Gasparino has arranged one group of students in a circle in the center of the classroom. She's going to introduce the lesson by asking students to review the information and the norms for dialogue. That's important. So let's watch how she frames this activity for students.
We are going to have a Socratic seminar today. You all prepped by doing the reading and making your annotations last night. Let's just review the norms and responsibilities of the Socratic seminar so that we all are aware of what's going to be going on. So, number one, be respectful. Don't interrupt one another. Listen, wait your turn to speak. Number two, everyone should participate in the conversation. The three ways that you can participate: you can either pose a question. I asked you guys to write those compelling questions, so you can pose a question. You can share what you thought was maybe something that was powerful in the text, or if there was some, like quote that you want to share with the group, and make sure you share the reason as to why. And then the other way that you can share is by sharing your call to action. So last time we talked about this, really start thinking about this is an issue, but what can we do about it, especially as teenagers? All right, number three, probably the hardest one for me. I am not going to speak during your seminar. So this is your time to have a conversation about this issue amongst each other. I'm simply here to hold the space and stay out of your way. If I absolutely have to, I'll jump in. Maybe add a prompting question or encourage others to speak up, but for the most part, I think you guys got this. Number four, when discussing each of the questions, feel free to come up with your own questions. So you wrote your own questions, but if other questions come up, make sure you share those questions with the group. And then the last thing, during the discussion, you can provide any necessary connections, so to anything that we've read all year long, so anything that comes up for you. Okay? So the goal of the intergroup is this. You're going to be having a discussion for 15 minutes. We have a little bit of a smaller group, so the expectation is you all make at least 3 comments. Okay, so that's how I'm going to assess you. You're referencing the text. You all have the text with you, so you have them marked up. So you should point out specific lines and things that you read. And then the last thing, again, is that call to action. So sharing how you can get involved or things that could be done. All right, is everyone in the center circle clear what you're supposed to do? Yes? Okay.
So you can see she's making the directions very clear for students in the inner circle and the students that are observing. Everyone is engaged in some way. Now she's going to discuss the topic of their discussion.
So in your freshman seminar classes, I know a lot of you have been talking about equity and access. Last Socratic seminar, we talked about access to healthy food. In the next week, we're actually going to be talking a lot about access and equity in education. So your next time writing is actually going to be about access to education. The overarching, if you look back on the front sheet, the overarching question is who should have access to education in America? But for the Socratic seminar today, the real question is looking at government support for non-documented citizens. Okay, so the question is, should our democracy extend government support for higher education to immigrants who, as young people, entered the country illegally? So the entire reading last night was specifically about this issue, but remember the overarching issue is access and education.
So I hope you can see this is a pretty controversial topic. Students have read a lot on the subject. They got a lot of ideas about it too. So let's take a minute and watch and see how their discussion unfolds.
Should democracy extend government support for higher education to immigrants who, as young people, entered the country illegally? Do you guys agree with that?
To an extent, it should. Because I feel like if we do that, there could be, too many students in the universities, and, I also feel like it's something that should be done because they're the stories of students who are straight A students, perfect citizens, but can't get in because of the cost and they can't qualify to the funding.
So yeah, I totally agree. I think that they should have the exact same rights as other students, and they're not necessarily taking away from any other students if they actually have the qualifications for like a financial aid, because like it's not, you know, they're not really taking away from other students. It's the same thing as getting angry at someone who was born in this country for taking away your like financial aid. It's not like they were here anyway. It's not really taking away.
What about the students who, like, did cross the border, like, recently, like, a couple years ago, versus the kids who crossed when they're, like, babies or, like, even, like, had no memory of ever being in a different location, but it's, like, what about the kids who just recently
I
got
think
in?
that the kid that just recently got in still has, like, should have the same rights as the one that, like, was born here, because everyone should have the right to get, like, an education. Like, maybe the one that was born here will get straight A's or whatever, but I'm sure, like, the ones that just got in will, like, get the same amount of education.
Well, it says for the DREAM Act, it says that qualifying students had to have entered the U.S. before they were 16 and lived in the country for at least 5 years. So that's kind of an important factor.
Plus, in Mexico, kids don't have as good of education, so they're not going to get into. Most people in Mexico, I mean, I'm not being racist or anything, but they don't have the education system that we do, and they don't. Mainly, usually they lack the skills to get into a major university.
This, you know, like if they have the ambition and everything, like there was this story that Miss Gasparino told us about the girl who wanted to be a marine biologist and was really smart and had straight A's, but couldn't afford the college of her dreams even though she got in. I think that's one of the most important situations. I think that's really what they're trying to get us to focus on.
Yeah, if they're qualified,
Yeah, of course.
by all means. If they're qualified, then totally. I'm just saying, if they come over from Mexico and they're like 16, they're not going to have as good of an education as if they grew up in the U.S.
We should let illegal undocumented immigrants, give them a chance to give them tuition and scholarships if they kind of surpass what others have done, so they're above average, and we should help them.
This article really poses good points because it says that some of the advocates are just saying that you can't really expect that every single undocumented immigrant is going to be deported because, like, even just living in, like, here, like, I'm pretty sure we all know someone who, like, came to the country, like, undocumented, you know? But I think you can't, they're just saying that the fact that they came from another country doesn't mean that they don't have the right to an education. Like, just, like, anyone who's here, and the process is, like, so hard to get, you know, documented and everything. So I think that they're just saying that education is a human right. So, yeah. Ava, what do you think?
For financial aid for college students, it's being paid by the government, but it's coming from, like, our taxes and stuff, right? Okay, so I think that if a undocumented immigrant is gonna be a doctor or a lawyer or just a job that's used very commonly like that, then I think we should definitely give them support because they're giving back to the community. But if someone's majoring in, like, Greek mythology and it's not necessarily going to give back to the community, then I think there should be a line drawn. But I think everyone should deserve the highest education they can get. I just think that if our community's paying for it, then there should be a line where it kind of crosses over.
Agreeing with what Ava said, in the text, it talks about the group called FAIR, where they quote, "This massive giveaway of higher education to illegal aliens comes at a time when every state university system is raising tuition and cutting education benefits." It's on the last page. So I think that's what they're also trying to get at, that it's like so much people that are trying to get into colleges, and then some might, they might quit college, or they might step back or take a gap year, and then they think, oh, this college isn't right for me, and they might take some type of lower job. So maybe it is better that our government would help the ones who are pursuing a job that could, or a career that could give a big benefit to the whole community, and make sure that they achieve that goal, so that it has a great impact in our community. Yeah.
How would you, like, measure that? How would you find, like, what they're doing?
I don't exactly understand the whole point of restricting it to make sure that the ones who are going to use it get it and the ones not. Because the students who are getting the scholarships are usually the students who the colleges have already decided, hey, I think they're able to go into our college and do well. So isn't that kind of like a pretty obvious point that the student does want to learn and is using this to its full potential instead of just like getting it so they could, because they believe it will make their lives easier?
That's exactly the point, is that like the argument that they're taking away from other students is sort of invalid, because if they were going to get a, like, if they were accepted and they were going to get, you know, financial aid anyway, what does the fact that they weren't born here have to do with anything, you know?
But often, if you're racially diverse, colleges want to give scholarships to you. It's easier to get a scholarship if you're not white because they think you can afford it if you're white.
Do you guys think that the argument that the DREAM Act punishes citizens and mocks legal immigrants who have played by the rules, or do you think that's kind of crazy?
It also said in the article that usually it's not the kid's choice to go over here. It's sometimes the parents because of their economic state and where they come from, or that sometimes war or some type of thing that could affect them and their child, so they decide to move here for a better opportunity. I feel like it's an in-between because you can't really necessarily tell someone's playing by the rules all the time. And then also some people, maybe undocumented, might be following the rules even more to an extent, so they might actually be like going out of their way to follow every single rule, while people who are born here don't follow it. So I think it all just depends on the family that has come here before.
Education is also like one of the main events that happened in this article, but most of the time, it has to do with people searching for better life. Like the United States it's such a diverse country where it's like a lot like more freer, I guess, even though. And it says that many people flee their own countries in search of a better life for their kids or for like their grandkids or whatever. And I also wanted to know why, I didn't really like when they said that immigrants are kind of considered alien to a country, like illegal immigrants, because it doesn't make sense, because you're human. You're not an alien.
Everyone has a right to learn, like no matter where they're from. I mean, it's good. It helps them on their future and everything, so everyone doesn't matter where they're from, they should get the education that they need, because it's going to help them out.
So I hope you notice this is a very rich discussion informed by their reading, their own personal experiences, and the viewpoints they're getting from others. From here, the teacher will give other students the opportunity to enter into the inner circle and engage in a similar dialogue. Students outside the circle continue to take notes and reflect. So let's take a few minutes to observe some of this dialogue now of this group.
There's a paragraph right here that deals with a document that the United Nations signed that states that all the people who sign the document have to make primary education compulsory and available free to all, and encourage the development of different forms of secondary education. Right now in America, with the way our educational system is set up, the most common form of secondary education is university. So if we are to encourage this as members of the United Nations, we should be encouraging it.
That should include the illegal immigrants and immigrants who are documented.
I think making available can kind of include funding, because I'm sure a lot cannot afford it, so it's kind of almost said in our law, not directly, but that we should help them.
If they don't have the money to pay for it and the resources to go, then we should be providing that, because we provide it for kids who aren't immigrants.
The issue I have with this is a lot of people come to this country for a better opportunity for their children. And, the people that come here legally, it's you have to wait 5 years to become a citizen for all this to be available to you. But if you come illegally and you get the same rights as an illegal person, well, wouldn't that encourage more illegal crossing over instead of coming in the legal way? And that really kind of bothers me because it's not fair. why did my family have to wait 5 years for us to become citizens when another family can come in and then in 2 years they can get the same kind of thing that's available to me.
So I hope you could see it's great to see young people contemplating new ideas based on their research, listening to the personal experiences and views of others. We know the Common Core calls for students to provide evidence to support opinions and conclusions, and we're seeing that here in the Socratic seminar approach. And once groups have ample time to share their views, the teacher invites the entire class to engage in a whole class discussion. So let's watch how this unfolds.
Any last comments from the outside of the circle, especially those of you who didn't get to speak today? Questions that you wrote down?
You were talking earlier about how that we shouldn't, give funding to people if they're gonna blow off their scholarship. And I was thinking, well, if the education of the people who are not legally citizens here isn't being taken seriously, and we shouldn't fund them for that or give them scholarships for that, well, what about just because they're citizens here, they don't take their education seriously, but they're getting scholarships? What about that?
Would there be any way to permanently fix this situation?
Good question.
No.
I know in other countries like Slovenia, they have actually free college education for anybody. No matter what country you come from, you can get free college education. So how did they do that?
How high is that education and how good is it? Because if it's free, are they paying their teachers and educators and the people who, because how far does that school provide for that student? Does it give them residency? Does it have a grounds for them to stay at? Does it give them food? Because if it's just free education, like let's say we just had a building for education, you just go there to learn something and then go home or go somewhere else to actually pay for your food and have a house, that could also be a solution to the problem. But if we just had everything given into one compound, it'd be really hard to support all those people who are cooking and the educators and the janitors and everyone in that compound to pay them even though the school is free. So it's kind of hard. There's no one solution. There has to be multiple solutions and multiple pros and cons.
I don't think that there's really a permanent way to fix this problem because the fact that there's still in some countries women can't have an education, I don't think that immigrants will have the same education as citizens. So we have to fix the problem before fixing another problem. We're creating problems on problems. So we have to fix one problem in order to fix the other.
The issue we're talking about isn't money in education. It's to do with illegal immigrants in education, which is a completely different topic. Yes, they link, but we're talking about should we grant education, which is a right to most of us, to people who have come to the country illegally or not.
So what fascinates me is the level of questioning by students. You can really see they're really delving into this topic to reveal the complexities that exist around it. I think they're starting to realize there are no easy solutions here. Issues of equity, resources, priority, and costs all need to be considered. These are areas they may not have known about before their investigation, but now they're coming to the surface as a result of their research and this very powerful dialogue. That is the power of civil dialogue when done right. And as the teacher wraps this up, let's see how she invites students to reflect upon this process.
How about thoughts on how the seminar or the activity went as a whole? Andrew, can you share with us?
I think it was a cool experience. The smaller group allowed more people to talk, and we got to listen to each other more.
Okay. Kala?
I like the smaller groups a lot because everyone got a chance to speak, and when we do the bigger groups, there's a lot of side conversations going on, but with the smaller groups, everyone was just participating.
Natalie?
I also think that the smaller groups are better because everyone got to talk and everyone like shared their ideas. Because like when we do bigger groups, I guess like Kala said, like there's a lot of side conversations and not everyone gets to share what's on their mind.
So as you can see, this was quite the learning experience for students. You get the feeling they really appreciated the process to speak and to be heard, something that doesn't always happen in classrooms. Finally, Ms. Gasparino ends with the use of exit tickets to enable her to get some feedback from her students. This is important for students to give them that voice, but also helpful for the teacher to hear the feedback from them.
Before we leave class, you all have the same exit ticket that we did before. So please take a moment, fill it out. You're basically just reflecting on your own process. So something that you think you did really well, something you would like to work on in the next Socratic seminar. Give yourself a ranking. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, how do you rate your participation? And then number 5 is required, but it's for fun. Just give a shout out to someone.
As you can see, the goal of using Socratic seminars is to create the opportunity for students to voice their different points of view based on the evidence they investigated and to hear from others so they can make an informed decision on the civic inquiry. Take a moment to reflect on what you've seen today about the use of Socratic seminar for facilitating dialogue. Pause the video to contemplate these questions. What do you see as the benefits of using Socratic seminars to foster civil dialogue? What challenges are associated with implementing this technique in your classroom? And what support will you need to implement Socratic seminars? So hopefully you can see from the students the power of this form of civil dialogue. We also asked Ms. Gasparino for her thoughts. Here's what she told us.
I think Socratic Seminar is a really powerful tool for students because it gets them involved collectively, having conversation. They can share multiple viewpoints. They can engage in a little bit of debate. And also it gets them thinking about things that they can do as a result of these issues.
So we all know that the next generation of citizens, as well as the next generation of legislators, presidents, governors, other elected officials, and judicial officers will need to be able to ask hard questions, contemplate a number of complex issues surrounding problems they're going to be expected to confront and solve. Being able to engage in dialogue with people of opposing viewpoints in ways that are informative and civil is critical to the future of our democracy. This skill can and must be learned. And of course, we believe the best place to develop this skill is in classrooms. So please, allow me to thank Ms. Jenna Gasparino and her students for showing us that it can be done with skill, grace, and integrity. In Modules 6 and 7, you'll see different forms of civil dialogue that hopefully you can engage your students in as well. Because as we mentioned, civil dialogue is one of 5 components of a high-quality civic inquiry and investigation experience for students. All of our other modules go in depth on these different components. I hope you can find the time to engage with them too, and you can find them all right here at this website. So we hope you continue to work, explore, practice, be innovative, finding ways to prepare the next generation of citizens and leaders of our nation to be informed, responsible, and engaged members of our democratic society. Thank you.